Hello humans, Allison and Tony here, your favorite HR partners, back for another HR tip of the week. What do we got this week, Tony?
So this week we have a very good question. It is, should we require doctor's notes when our employees are out sick?
We don't like it when they're out sick.
Sickness is not great. Vacation's better.
Yeah, you better tell me why you're out.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things that you think about when we're thinking about people that are out sick. One is definitely your culture. Does your culture require somebody to every single thing that they're out or everything be documented? I know as HR people, you've heard us say a million times, documentation. If
it's not written, it didn't happen.
Yep, that's true. But with sick time and doctor's notes, not always required. So that's one of the main things that we always like to think about.
I think it's also important to remember that not every industry or every human has the same abilities. And what do we mean by that? Perhaps you don't have the ability to offer health insurance, or maybe your staff doesn't all take health insurance, and maybe this particular individual that's out doesn't have health insurance. So for them to go to the doctors would be very expensive. And they just don't feel good. They have maybe a head cold, flu, and they're just trying to work it out themselves. You don't want to then require more of,
lost pay or to have to pay the compensation of that. Absolutely. And I think it also has to do with the compensation that you're paying an employee, right? So if we're talking about somebody who's making close to maybe that minimum wage threshold and they're out, having them, if they don't have the health insurance, go to the doctor, as you said, could cost them a pretty penny. I think the other thing to think about is how long has the person been out, right? Are we asking every single time a person's out, you've been out for a day, I want a doctor's note? That's kind of cumbersome, and in my opinion, a little bit of overkill, quite honestly. So I don't think we would ever suggest like every single time, but I would say that there are times that you can track or trend people who are maybe sick on the same day.
Every Monday.
All the time. And so if you feel like there's a pattern or a trend happening, you can address it as an attendance issue first. And then you can say, moving forward, if you're going to be out sick, we are going to require a doctor's note because you're doubtful that maybe they truthfully are sick and they might be abusing the process. So I think that if you think that, then yes, approach it as an attendance issue first, and then you can start asking for the doctor's note.
Most importantly, you really should have a written policy of how you're going to handle these situations. We do recommend, when we're writing policy for our clients, after 3 days. So if you're going to be out 3 days, on that third day, we would then require a doctor's note. Just stating, I'm actually really, really sick. And also that gives the opportunity to verify when you should be coming back. Because usually if you're at the point of 3 days, you might have something that we don't want in the office or in the work atmosphere, but also letting us know when you're good to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only thing I think that would be something to pay attention to is we are still post-pandemic. If we're thinking about post-pandemic, I would say if there's a COVID sickness, instead of asking for a note, follow whatever the current CDC guidelines are. So whatever they are as of today, for today when you're watching this video, follow those guidelines. They are constantly shifting. So for us to say what they are today won't make sense maybe tomorrow or next week or next year. So if there's COVID specific stuff, I would say follow whatever COVID requirements are at that particular timeline. But Allison's correct. We suggest generally 3 days. If someone's out 3 consecutive days, they're probably pretty sick. They probably should see a doctor if they're out that long, right? Maybe you need medicine, or just to make sure you're good to come back and you don't have something worse than maybe you think. So absolutely, that's our general recommendation.
So keep it consistent, create a policy, and make sure that you're sticking to whatever your policy is.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like, share, and follow this video so your friends can be as smart as you are.